Insert story.
A yellow ball-shaped icon that looks like a pizza pie with one slice removed or a hockey puck. No, not that icon. I'm talking about Pac-Man. Today's video I will be exploring all of the different packs in the Pac-Man universe, of the many thousands of Pac people, and I will be talking about other packs that people don't ever talk about. And just before we begin, just for the sake of variety, I will not start with you-know-who, but we will get to him. Let's get started and go exploring with the many packs in all of Pac-Man. Number 1, Ms. Pac-Man. Ms. Pac-Man is a video game icon from the 1980s. Her popularity soared throughout the world. Her game became one of the biggest arcade games of all time, maybe even the biggest. In fact, I'd argue the arcade game Ms. Pac-Man was probably more successful than the original Pac-Man arcade game. So famously, Ms. Pac-Man is the wife of Pac-Man, and both Pac-Man and Ms. Pac-Man have become one of the most famous pop culture couples of all time. Way up there with Homer and Marge Simpson, Mickey Mouse and Minnie Mouse, etc. Although she looks similar to Pac-Man, she does have her own unique, distinct look in some of her features, which makes her stand out, especially in the 1980s. She later had other ports of her arcade game released, and had her own games later on as well, not just appearing in regular Pac-Man games. She also had Ms. Pac-Man Maze Madness in the early 2000s. It was released for the N64 and the Sega Dreamcast, and the PS1. Ms. Pac-Man was also a playable racer in Pac-Man World Rally for the PS2. She was also a playable character in Pac-Man Fever, which was like a Mario Party clone, which was pretty cool. Tragically, Ms. Pac-Man is no longer owned by Namco. They lost the rights to her, which is a colossal disaster to me as a Pac-Man fan, and I really wish they would fix the legal troubles of that, because now we can never see Ms. Pac-Man ever again. For example, in the new Pac-Man re-pac game, which is a remake of Pac-Man World 1, they have Pac-Mom, this bland attempt to have Ms. Pac-Man there without it being Ms. Pac-Man just sucks. The name sucks, the look, I hate it. I just reminisce and miss the times of the 90s and the 2000s where you'd still see artwork of Ms. Pac-Man that they would make. You'd still see new releases of Ms. Pac-Man games and stuff, like her PC games and things. Ms. Pac-Man also had another of her own games that was made in 2001, Ms. Pac-Man Quest for the Golden Maze. It was only released for the PC back in the day. Ms. Pac-Man also appeared in Pac-Man World 1. Strangely, Ms. Pac-Man does not appear at all in Pac-Man World 2. But Ms. Pac-Man does appear in Pac-Man World 3. Why was she absent in Pac-Man World 2? I have no frickin' idea. I never thought I'd say this, but in 2025, I really, really miss Ms. Pac-Man, and I hope she will return someday. But regardless as to whether she returns or not, she will forever be indouted as one of the classic video game characters of all time. Not just in Pac history, but in all of pop culture history and video game history. She also appeared in the 1980s Pac-Man Hanna-Barbera cartoon, and I don't know why Pac-Man always calls her Pepper. At first I thought it was like a cute nickname that he gave her, but he calls her Pepper all the time. Is this like an indication that her name really is Pepper? I don't know. Could it be at the time that they didn't have the rights to the name of Ms. Pac-Man to put her in a cartoon and only use the name of Ms. Pac-Man in the games? If so, what the hell is that all about? I mean, are you serious? Anyway, number 2, Junior Pac-Man. Junior Pac-Man is a really cool character that was always underutilized in the entire history of the Pac-Man series. He only had one game to call his own, which was an arcade game in the 1980s, and it came out after Ms. Pac-Man. Junior, his game, the mazes were way larger, and the screen would scroll. It was very, neat. And it was like expanding what the mazes of Pac-Man could be as a game series. They did the same thing in Ms. Pac-Man. The mazes in Ms. Pac-Man were better than the first Pac-Man game. Also, the first appearance, though, of Junior is actually in the arcade game of Ms. Pac-Man. The stork brings him. Junior Pac-Man as a character also stands out for having one of the greatest storylines in the entire history of Pac-Man by falling in love with a ghost. And not just a ghost, but a ghost that's the daughter of Blinky, the leader of the Ghost Gang. This creates such a conflict between Pac-Man, Ms. Pac-Man, and Blinky. So you got the adults fighting over their relationship. This would have been perfect to see in the future. I wish we got future Pac-Man games where Yum Yum and Junior are still together. And they were so madly in love in those cutscenes in that original game. It kind of felt like these two were going to get married someday. Oh well, because just like a Ms. Pac-Man, Junior Pac-Man is not owned by Namco. And what pisses me off about that is, while it legally makes sense, I just don't understand why Namco doesn't give a shit about Junior Pac-Man. Why don't they buy the rights? Why don't they care? Why do we have to even talk about it? Junior Pac-Man is part of the legacy of Pac-Man. I know he seems like he's not important, but you could say that about any of the characters in Pac-Man. What makes Junior so different? There's all these unique and cool things you could do with Junior Pac-Man. But no, they just completely ignore him. Like as if his game never existed. Junior does appear in Pac-Man World 1. He also appears in Pac-Man World 3, slightly older. And oddly, just like Ms. Pac-Man, Junior is not in Pac-Man World 2. What's really interesting is that in the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, there was a character called PJ. And he was like a younger version of Pac-Man. And they don't say too much about PJ, or I can't remember what they say about him, but a lot of the fans speculate that he is supposed to represent Junior Pac-Man, that he's basically Junior Pac-Man, but they don't have the rights to the character's name, so they can't call him Junior Pac-Man. So they were extremely clever, and they just decided to call him PJ, which is frickin' perfect. Genius. At least that's a way you can handle something like that. PJ was handled way better than fucking Pac-Mom from re-pac. That's how you get a character in there that should be in there. Not what they did with Ms. Pac-Man and Pac-Mom. I love Junior Pac-Man. I think the arcade game is great. I think it's an underrated arcade game. It just his character, though, and legacy feels like a tragedy in the Pac-Man lexicon. And I wonder if it'll ever change. Probably not. Number 3, Count Pac-ULA. In the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, there was one episode where they had a vampire pack. Extremely cool, you know? He kind of looked like Bela Lugosi, you know? The cape and everything, the fangs. I just loved Pac-ULA. What an awesome, creative, Halloweenish character to put into the Pac-Man universe. And the fact that they made it Pac made him even more unique. I really wish that Pac-ULA appeared in a Pac-Man video game.
Why have you awakened me? Give me one good reason why I shouldn't suck the ectoplasm out of you, ghost.
You make that Lord Ghost. And because you're about to sleep through a chance that comes only once in a double blue moon. The only night that you can
Drain the life out of the yellow orb.
Skibo, is that you?
No, I am Count Pac-ULA. You are now under my vampire power and will do whatever I command.
Wow, costume's like way better than... Huh?
Pac-ULA has one of the coolest designs of all the Pac people. He's also unique because he's an evil Pac. Most of the Pacs are good. They have good-natured hearts, whereas Pac-ULA is a vampire. You know, whatever. Number 4, with a thumbs up and a wink and a big smile, we have the icon of gaming, Pac-Man. A character so old, enriched in the history of gaming. Back in the day, Pac-Man was really one of the first video game characters, period. Before Pac-Man, all of the quote-unquote characters in video games were just your guy or your ship, and they didn't always have names. Sometimes they did. So really, Pac-Man was this trendsetter character. He's a character and a game that Pac-Man helped make video games popular. It helped video games be recognized amongst the peanut gallery who were never interested in video games to begin with. In fact, a lot of people who aren't into video games at all, they'll play Pac-Man, and they still know Pac-Man. It's a casual game that anyone can play, yet complex enough that it intrigues you, and it's difficult to get further in the game. But with practice, you can become a Pac master. I love his design. They did an excellent job of bringing his original 2D design into 3D. Even before they made a 3D Pac-Man game, they were already experimenting and showing him with a three-dimensional body. He also appeared in Super Smash Bros., and also, quite frankly, Pac-Man pioneered platforming video games. Pac-Land was released before Super Mario Bros. I talked about this in another video. So Pac-Man has really done it all. He's one of the biggest icons of gaming, and nothing will change that. 200 years from now, people will still be playing the original Pac-Man arcade game. Number 5, Pac-Skeleton. In an episode of the Hanna-Barbera Pac-Man cartoon, there appears to be a skeleton of a Pac that comes out of the grave trying to eat one of the ghost gang. I thought it was pretty interesting and really neat to see a skeleton of a Pac, and it's something you don't really think about. When you think about the Pacs themselves, you know, they look, well, like roly-poly-oly, but they look like aliens, or they don't look like a creature that would have a skeleton skin underneath them. But apparently, according to the Hanna-Barbera cartoon, they do actually have a skeleton. In this episode of the show, they don't say what this Pac's name is, but apparently he was one of the Pacs that used to be alive, and kind of neat to see how a skeleton can still be alive. Is that something only the Pacs can do, or am I just reading too much into it and it's just a little silly joke? Yeah. Anyway, moving on. Number 6, Mr. Cookie. Mr. Cookie is a character from Pac-Man Party, which is kind of like a knockoff of Mario Party for the second time. The original one is one I mentioned earlier called Pac-Man Fever. For some reason, I really like the idea of Mr. Cookie because it introduces another Pac-Man Pac character as opposed to the typical ones we always find, like Ms. Pac-Man, Pac-Man, stuff like that. The name is unique, and there's even a storyline of Mr. Cookie in the game itself. Mr. Cookie actually tells Pac-Man that a thief has been after his cookie recipe, but later on in the game it's revealed that it was never stolen, and he only gave it to Blinky to try to show and test Pac-Man that he does in fact have the skill to be the ultimate Pac. The only other character I can think of that does this lesson stuff to Pac-Man is Pac-Master, another Pac that I'll mention in a sequel video. So anyway, that's Mr. Cookie. Pretty cool, huh? He's probably best friends with Cookie Monster. Also, surprisingly, Mr. Cookie actually appears in another Pac-Man game. He appears as a secret playable character in the Minecraft Pac-Man DLC. And number 7, Sue. Sue is a Pac from Pac-Man World 2. She owns the arcade there. Tells Pac-Man about the arcade games he can play if he has enough tokens and stuff. Sue is a very intriguing character. A lot of fans talk about this strange Sue Pac in Pac-Man World 2 because her name is the same as the Ghost of Sue. Now, the Ghost of Sue's color changed to purple during the Pac-Mania era. Sue is also a purple ghost in the Hanna-Barbera cartoon. This Sue character as a Pac does have the color purple. She has her purple hat, she has purple boots, she has a purple bib or whatever, and the pink gloves. Could Sue represent the Ghost of Sue? Let us remember that the Ghost of Sue became a forgotten character in the 90s and the 2000s. Eventually, they just kept it the original 4, Blinky, Pinky, Inky, and Clyde, and Sue was completely forgotten for a very long time. And out of nowhere, we have this Pac character called Sue. Is her name and design a throwback to the Ghost of Sue? Could this be how Sue was before she died, before she became the Ghost of Sue? this would make Pac-Man World 2 a prequel to all of the Pac-Man games in the timeline, and that wouldn't make sense, right? So her character is a mystery. She also appears in Pac-Man Pinball Advance for the Game Boy Advance back in the day, and she was kidnapped by the Ghost Gang, and you gotta rescue her. Her hat is kind of interesting, and it does make sense because it's like residue from what they were originally going to do with her. They were going to give her like a smoothie shop, but they decided it'd be more interesting to give her the position of the owner of the arcade room, which I like a lot better, actually. But the fact that they made this character Sue the owner of the arcade room, and her name is Sue, surrounded by all these old Pac-Man arcade games when the ghost of Sue was still a thing, how could you not think of the purple ghost of Sue? There's definitely a connection there. So what I was saying was that's why her hat looks like a smoothie. So we solved the mystery of her hat, but what about the mystery of the character? Sue will probably always be a mysterious character, just like Junior Pac-Man. And there you guys have it. This was explaining all the Pacs in Pac-Man, Part 1. Please like and subscribe. Let me know if you guys liked this stuff, and I'll make more sequels to it. I thought this was a fun, cute video to make, and why not? I already talked about most of the ghosts in Pac-Man. Might as well start talking about the Pacs themselves. In some ways, they're even more interesting than the ghosts anyway. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Thank you all for watching. Have a fantastic week. And my name is SuperPat98, and I'll see you again real soon.